The sun was setting low over the rolling plains, casting long shadows across the ranch. The wind carried a faint scent of sagebrush and dry earth, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, announcing the coming night. The lone rancher, a man who had spent most of his life in solitude, leaned against the weathered wooden fence, taking in the quiet beauty of the landscape. His horse grazed nearby, its ears twitching at every sound. He had grown accustomed to these moments of peace, moments when the world seemed to slow down, when the weight of loneliness was almost bearable. But tonight was different. There was a presence he could feel in the air, an energy that prickled at his skin. He turned slowly, squinting against the last rays of the sun, and there she was, a figure as tall and imposing as any woman he had ever seen, standing at the edge of the clearing. Her hair, dark as the midnight sky, flowed over her shoulders, and her eyes, fierce and piercing, seemed to look right through him. She was a giant of a woman, not just in stature but in aura, commanding attention without a word. "You," she said, her voice deep and resonant, carrying over the distance between them. "You're the one." The rancher's heart skipped a beat. He had known of the legends, of the Apache girl who roamed these lands, a giant among her people, fierce, untamed, and solitary. But he had never imagined meeting her, and certainly not like this, under the waning light of a desert sky. Yes, I am," he stammered, unsure of how to respond. The wind tugged at his hat, and he adjusted it nervously, aware that his usual confidence felt like it had deserted him. She stepped closer, each movement deliberate, a rhythm in her stride that mirrored the wildness of the land. "You are alone here," she said, almost as a statement rather than a question. "And I am alone as well. It seems we are destined to meet." He swallowed hard, feeling a strange mix of fear and intrigue. "Why have you come here?" he asked. "This land is not meant for strangers." The Apache girl smiled, a slow, knowing smile that held both mischief and a quiet intensity. "I am not a stranger," she replied. "I am what you have been waiting for, though perhaps you did not know it." Her eyes softened for a moment, revealing a vulnerability that contrasted with her formidable presence. "I have walked these lands for months, seeking something I cannot name, something I feel only in the presence of a man like you." The rancher's mind raced. He had spent years tending his land, caring for his animals, and living in solitude. He had seen travelers, hunters, and fortune seekers pass through, but none had stirred anything within him. And yet, in the presence of this towering Apache girl, he felt a warmth, a connection, a recognition of something primal and undeniable. "I do not understand," he said, his voice low. "Why me?" "Because you are honest," she said simply. "Because you respect this land and what it holds. Because you have lived in solitude and know the weight of loneliness. I see you, and I know that you see me." There was a silence then, thick and heavy, filled only by the whisper of the wind through the dry grass. The rancher could feel the pull of something larger than himself, a force that drew him toward her. She was not like any woman he had known. She was wild, free, and untamed, a force of nature as much as a person. "You will not run," she said, her gaze locking onto his. "You will not fear me." I do not know if I can," he admitted, his voice barely more than a whisper. "You are unlike anyone I have ever met." "Then let me show you," she said, stepping closer until he could feel the warmth radiating from her. Her presence was overwhelming, a mixture of strength and vulnerability, and it drew him in as if he had no choice. The sun disappeared completely, leaving a deep, violet twilight over the plains. The stars began to emerge, tiny points of light scattered across the heavens, as if the world itself had paused to witness this meeting. The Apache girl reached out, her hand brushing against his. It was a gentle touch, yet it carried the weight of a promise, a challenge, and an invitation all at once. "You are mine tonight," she whispered, her voice a soft caress against the quiet of the desert. "Do you understand?" The rancher nodded, unable to speak. Words seemed inadequate in the face of such raw intensity, such unbridled desire. He could feel the tension building between them, a magnetic pull that neither could resist. She closed the distance, and for the first time he truly saw her. Not just the towering figure of legend, but a woman with fears, desires, and needs as deep as his own. Her eyes held a mixture of command and longing, and he understood then that this was no ordinary encounter. This was fate, raw and unyielding, shaped by months of solitude and longing. "You are afraid," she said, reading his hesitation. "But fear is nothing here. With me, there is only truth." He took a deep breath, feeling the wind whip around them, carrying the scent of sage and dust. "Then show me," he whispered. "Show me what it is to be with you." Her smile widened, and she drew him close, the heat of her body radiating against his. Time seemed to blur, the world narrowing to the two of them, to the unspoken promises and desires that had led them to this moment. She guided him gently, yet with an undeniable authority, a master of her own body and her own will. "You will not forget this," she said, her lips brushing against his ear. "This night will be etched in your memory, as it will be in mine." The rancher nodded, feeling a thrill unlike anything he had ever known. It was not merely physical desire. It was connection, understanding, and the merging of two solitary spirits who had found one another in a vast and lonely land. The night deepened, and with it came a rhythm that matched the pulse of the earth itself. They moved together in harmony, a dance as old as time, guided by instinct and mutual understanding. Every touch, every glance, every whisper carried meaning, binding them closer in ways neither could have imagined. When the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, painting the plains in hues of gold and rose, they lay together in quiet exhaustion, their breaths mingling with the cool morning air. The rancher looked at the Apache girl, seeing not just the giant woman of legend, but the person who had shared this moment, this connection, this unspoken understanding of loneliness and longing. "You are different from anyone I have ever known," he said, his voice soft. "I never thought I would find this." "And yet you have," she replied, her hand resting lightly on his chest. "We found each other in the vastness of this land, where no one else could reach us. And now we carry a piece of each other with us." The rancher smiled, a mix of relief, wonder, and something deeper he could not name. "What happens now?" he asked, knowing that the world outside this clearing would not understand, that the legends of the plains would whisper about what had occurred here. "Now," she said, rising to her full height once more, "we continue to live, we continue to walk our paths, but we do so knowing that we are not alone, that we have seen and shared something that few will ever experience." She turned, her figure silhouetted against the rising sun, a reminder of the wildness and strength she carried. The rancher watched her, understanding that their encounter had changed him, had awakened something within him that he could never ignore. As she disappeared into the morning light, he felt a sense of completeness, a rare and profound satisfaction that came not from conquest or possession, but from connection and understanding. He had met a force of nature, and in doing so had discovered a part of himself he did not know existed. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The plains remained as wild and untamed as ever, but the rancher carried with him the memory of that night, of the giant Apache girl who had walked into his life and shown him a world beyond solitude. He tended his land with renewed vigor, his spirit lighter, his heart fuller. And though he rarely saw her again, he knew that the bond they shared would endure, a testament to the strange and powerful forces of destiny, desire, and the human heart. Sometimes, when the wind blew just right, carrying the scent of sage and distant fires, he would close his eyes and imagine her presence beside him. And he would smile, knowing that somewhere on those endless plains, the giant Apache girl walked freely, fiercely, and unyieldingly, carrying with her the memory of a man who had seen her for what she truly was, and had been forever changed by it. In the end, it was not just a story of passion or desire. It was a story of two solitary spirits finding one another in a world that often seemed indifferent. It was a story of courage, vulnerability, and the unexpected ways in which life rewards those who dare to be seen, truly seen, by another. And in the quiet of the plains, under the endless sky, that story lived on, a reminder that sometimes, in the most unlikely places, hearts can find each other, and souls can touch, in ways that leave the world forever altered.